Hello, I'm Cameron Smith, and this is my capstone project, exploring the efficacy of personality assessments in forensic psychology. Personality assessments have a variety of uses throughout our society. One of the most reputable personality assessments, for example, is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI. Personality assessments have been used in the criminal justice system as well for a variety of reasons. Most notably, personality assessments are used for forensic evaluators to determine a person's competency to stand trial. However, there are other assessments and tests that can be used to determine a person's competency to stand trial. So, the question becomes, is using personality assessments the most effective way to determine a person's competency to stand trial? Additionally, personality assessments are used in many careers throughout the legal system. Some examples include law enforcement officers and attorneys. So, can personality assessments effectively determine the success a person has at a profession, such as a police officer, detective, or attorney? So now I'm going to continue to my literature review. As I mentioned earlier, personality assessments are used for a variety of reasons throughout our society. Some of the most commonly used personality assessments that are used in forensic settings specifically are the Minnesota Multifaceted Personality Inventory, or MMPI, the Personality Assessment Inventory, or PAI, and the Psychopathy Checklist Revised, or PCL-R. The MBTI has also been used throughout the legal system, but these are more specifically for legal professionals as they assess their careers and career progression. As personality assessments are used commonly, there is debate, and there has been debate, about their effectiveness in forensic settings. Personality assessments have been used in many of the major areas of the legal system. Therefore, my research can be broken down into three main subcategories: competency evaluations, law enforcement, and legal professionals. When it comes to competency evaluations, a lot of research has been conducted about the usefulness of personality assessments to determine a person's competency. The major personality assessments which were used from these sources are the MMPI, the version 2 of the MMPI, and the PAI. Each of these resources were found to offer information about the use of these assessments during competency evaluations, the practical uses of personality assessments, or the key considerations as a forensic evaluator as they administer an assessment to determine competency. Dixon et al. And Rahman et al. Are two studies which did cover the use of personality assessments during competency evaluation. However, they found specific challenges that were very common to one another. Specifically, Rahman et al. Found that by a person having an extreme belief system, which can be common in our society, can negatively impact the results of the personality assessment for that individual. Additionally, Dixon et al. Found very similar data. However, this article showed that it wasn't just extreme belief systems, it was cultural and racial beliefs or biases and beliefs. And he found that those biases can negatively affect the results of personality assessments. A lot of research has been conducted about the usefulness of personality assessments within the law enforcement. These references cover aspects of law enforcement as it relates to personality assessments, specifically in terms of how they are generally used throughout the police force. To use the personality assessments to attempt to predict the success of an individual going into the police force, and to assess possible toxic behaviors in police officers by using personality assessments. Not much research has been conducted about the usefulness of personality assessments with legal professionals, such as attorneys. These two sources review the potential for attorneys using personality assessments to better know themselves to become better advocates of the law. All right, on to my research method. In order to gather the research for this capstone project, I gathered research articles from various sources. These sources include the Florida National University Library, Google Scholar, ResearchGate, LexisNexis, and others. I generally gathered articles, case studies, and other materials to aid me in researching personality assessments as they relate to forensic psychology and the legal system. However, after gathering the material, I prioritized peer-reviewed articles above other material. I did find other non-peer-reviewed sources, which still provided valid and relevant content concerning my topic. But overall, I found 15 peer-reviewed articles, which provide the foundation of my research and capstone project. So onto the results and data which I collected. To begin with competency evaluations, Salborn in 2017 examined 486 criminal defendants who were deemed potentially incompetent to stand trial by a court. Overall, this study found that there could be some discrepancies in the results from personality assessments. Some of the scales which are provided or produced by personality assessments define a person's state of paranoia. However, this scale is not necessarily considered when determining if someone is competent to stand trial by the forensic evaluator or the court. I also found a case study, which is listed as Feuerstein in 2006. This gives an example of how competency evaluations work in the legal system, and rather how they do not work. During this study, the subject, who was referred to as Mr. C, had a long history of criminal behavior. Before the study, he was in a mental health institution, and he had been found guilty of several criminal offenses prior to entering the facility, and this was including his adolescent years going into his 20s. While he was in the institution, he committed another felony offense, and this was shortly before this study occurred. And he was brought before a court. His defense attorney requested that the court allow Mr. C to undergo a competency evaluation because there was questionable material in his mental health records. The court agreed and ordered that he be evaluated. Mr. C underwent many assessments, and one of those assessments included a personality assessment. During this assessment, the forensic evaluator stated that he showed, or Mr. C rather, showed symptoms of schizophrenia or malingering, but he couldn't tell. Overall, that court accepted the findings of the forensic evaluator. However, the court still found that Mr. C was still competent to stand trial. And the reason was not because the forensic evaluator or the personality assessment provided unreliable results, but it was because the defense attorney did not prove by the preponderance of the evidence that Mr. C was incompetent to stand trial, which is an essential element for determining if a person is competent to stand trial. Referring back to Rahman and Dixon et al., they both found very significant challenges with administering and reviewing personality assessments. Rahman et al. Found that people with significant or extreme belief systems can have unreliable personality assessment results. The study found that people who might have overvalued beliefs, whether that be in a religion, culture, or from some other subcultural group, will start to answer questions during the personality assessment according to their belief systems and not according to how they actually think, feel, or behave. This study found that this could be problematic, especially concerning situations when forensic evaluators are concerned. As in a competency evaluation, the results of a personality assessment can play a large role in determining whether somebody is competent to stand trial or not. If an individual is not answering the questions according to how they really think or feel, it could cause the results of the assessment to be unreliable. Similarly, Dixon et al. A couple of years later found that there was a lot of cultural and racial mistrust when it comes to personality assessments. During this study, Dixon et al. Analyzed 100 white subjects, 90 black subjects, and 83 Hispanic subjects to assess and determine their level of trust towards personality assessments. Overall, the study found that there was a significantly high level of mistrust, which came primarily from the black subjects, and then also a relatively large amount of mistrust from the Hispanic subjects. This data also shows that the level of mistrust affected the way the subjects answered the questions of the personality assessments. Personality assessments have also been found to be very useful in assessing inmates throughout confinement facilities. So Eden et al. Determined that the PAI could be a useful personality assessment when working with inmates in confinement facilities. The PAI has a scale which determines the risk assessment of the test taker. This study found that the PAI had a high reliability and validity to determine the risk assessment of recidivism of inmates reoffending. Additionally, the PAI was helpful in determining personality disorders that inmates might have, which in turn was able to help treat the offenders towards rehabilitation. Personality assessments have been used within the police force for decades. This peer-reviewed article in 1985 was a study that examined 119 Australian police officers. The overall goal of the study was to determine the quality of life that police officers had. So the officers underwent many assessments and tests as part of the study, but one of the assessments was the MBTI. The study found that overall, the 119 police officers were very overwhelmed by the stresses of their job, and as a result had a poor quality of life. Additionally, MBTI determined that most of the police officers had introverted personalities and preferred to focus on facts and analyzing situations rather than going on instinct. So Terpstra et al. In 2022 studied the impact on personality assessments and the hiring process of police officers. During the study, 166 police officers were examined to determine what aspects made a great police officer. While the answer to the question of what it means to be great kind of varied, there were two consistent answers that were given. One, that the police officer was a good listener, and two, that the officer had a capacity for empathy. These attributes are attributes that can be revealed by the MBTI. So on to the use of personality assessments with attorneys. Richards, in 1993, surveyed many attorneys throughout the United States during the early 1990s, using the MBTI to determine popular personality types throughout the profession. He found that by using the MBTI, it could help improve an attorney's effectiveness at their job, because they learn aspects about themselves that they might not have known before. Additionally, the study found that there were 4 major personality types out of the 16 possible personality types that are listed in the MBTI, and these were the most common among attorneys. Lowe in 2019 followed on Richard by stating that the use of personality assessments can help attorneys regardless of which personality type they might be. And just because they don't fit in one of the 4 common personality types that Richard found, it doesn't mean that they are incapable of being an attorney. And these are some of the charts that came from Richard's. As you can see, the 4 common personality types was the ISTJ, INTJ, ENTP, and ESTJ. While those were the most common, the rest of the 16, he was able to find attorneys who did fit that personality type. But again, these 4 were the most common. Of the research I conducted, I was able to determine a few ways forward in terms of potential future research that could be conducted, which could greatly enhance the data in this field. This specifically regards to personality assessments used during mental evaluations, and the use of personality assessments throughout the legal professions, such as attorneys and other legal professionals. For competency evaluations, there are many articles that refer to cultural bias and racial bias. Mooks et al. In 2021 stated that courts rarely question the validity and reliability of the results of personality assessments. Therefore, in situations when the competency of an individual is in question, the court will rely heavily on forensic evaluators' opinion and the results of the assessment to determine the competency of the offender. However, in situations when someone has a cultural or racial bias, the results may be unreliable and invalid. Research into how these cultural and racial biases, specifically in terms of defendants undergoing competency evaluations, is needed to ensure the validity and reliability of personality assessments determining competency. Additionally, Jones v. State in 2024 is a recent case out of the Second Court of Appeals. The court broadened the definition of what it means to be competent to stand trial. Specifically, a person is competent if they can, 1, receive legal advice from an attorney, and 2, that they understand the legal proceeding that they are undergoing. It is commonly known that the major personality disorder that adversely affects a person's competency is schizophrenia. There are not many other personality disorders that can cause someone not to be competent to stand trial. However, this recent court opinion may broaden the scope of personality disorders that could cause someone to not be competent to stand trial. Therefore, additional research is needed to determine personality disorders that could adversely affect a person's competency to the point of interfering with their ability to receive legal advice from an attorney and understand court proceedings generally. When it comes to using personality assessments with attorneys, the most recent research was conducted in the early 1990s. The profession of an attorney and the court system has changed in countless ways over the course of the past 30 years. Therefore, more up-to-date research is needed to assess the attorney profession today. Additionally, there are many areas of law which an attorney can practice. For example, an attorney who specializes in probate and estate planning law will differ greatly with a federal prosecutor in terms of their personality types and their expectations for work. Therefore, additional research can be helpful in determining specific personality types between attorneys who practice in specific areas of law. Overall, personality assessments can be used effectively throughout the legal system. I have addressed some of the challenges that come with using personality assessments throughout the legal system, which include cultural and social beliefs and biases that can adversely affect the reliability and validity of test results. Regardless of the challenges, they can be mitigated, and the assessments can give valuable information and insight into individuals. The information from assessments can be used in court settings, forensic evaluations, and to assess job performance of police officers and attorneys. Personality assessments are a vital tool that should be used throughout our legal system and in forensic settings. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a great day.